So let's talk about what happens when a critical alliance starts to fracture from the inside out. We're going to dive into one of the most difficult, most consequential relationships of the 21st century, the one between U.S. President Barack Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It's a story about what happens when the personal trust between two world leaders just completely evaporates, and how that can shake the very foundation of a vital partnership.
Just listen to this. Back in 2011, a hot mic at a G20 summit caught this jaw-droppingly candid exchange. The French President Sarkozy had just called Netanyahu a liar, and Obama's reply wasn't a defense, but this incredibly weary complaint. It was one of those rare, unfiltered moments that gave everyone a glimpse into the private frustration that would end up defining their entire public relationship.
So yeah, that's the big question, right? How did it get this bad? This was way more than just a disagreement over policy. This was a fundamental, down-to-the-studs collapse of trust. And to really get it, we've got to go back to the very beginning. You see, that shocking exchange in 2011 wasn't really the start of the problem. Not at all. It was the moment the private friction just spilled out into the open for everyone to see. It was a symptom of a breakdown that had been simmering for years, one that was rooted in really deep disagreements and, frankly, a complete lack of personal chemistry. The truth is, the foundation of their relationship was, well, it was cracked from the very beginning. From the moment Obama took office in 2009, their worldviews, their priorities, and their political goals were pretty much on a collision course. Okay, so the first major clash was over Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and their positions were just worlds apart. Obama's team wanted a full, complete freeze on construction. They saw it as absolutely essential for any kind of two-state solution. But Netanyahu, he saw a full freeze as a political death sentence for his government back home. So, right out of the gate, the Obama administration felt like Netanyahu was stalling, and that set a pattern of mutual suspicion that never, ever really went away.
And then, wow, things escalated. Big time. In March of 2010, something happened that wasn't just a disagreement. It was seen as a public humiliation on the world stage, and it completely shattered the normal rules of diplomacy.
So check this out. Netanyahu flies to Washington for talks. While he's there, his government back in Israel announces, you guessed it, a bunch of new settlement construction. The White House was absolutely furious. They saw it as a deliberate slap in the face, and the response was this incredible diplomatic snub. Obama reportedly left Netanyahu waiting by himself to go have dinner, and they canceled the joint press conference. The message couldn't have been clearer. We don't see you as a trusted partner.
A year later, we get another huge public confrontation. In a major speech on the Middle East, Obama lays out his vision for peace, and he officially endorses this framework, right here. A Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders with some agreed-upon land swaps. Now, this had kind of been the unofficial basis for talks for years, but for a U.S. president to say it so publicly, that was a really big deal. Netanyahu's reaction? It was something else. It was immediate, and it was incredibly public. He flies to Washington, sits right there in the Oval Office next to Obama, and on live TV, he basically lectures the president, rejecting the whole idea right to his face. The White House was stunned. This public defiance just cemented their view of Netanyahu as totally inflexible, someone more interested in political theater than in actually making peace. But all of that, honestly, it was just the warm-up act. The issue that absolutely shattered any last little piece of a working relationship was the Iran nuclear deal. This wasn't just a dispute. This was all-out political war. And the divide here was absolute. For Obama, the Iran deal, this was his baby. It was his signature foreign policy achievement, a diplomatic way to stop Iran from getting a nuke. For Netanyahu, no way. He believed any deal that didn't totally dismantle Iran's program was an existential threat to Israel, one that gave a dangerous regime legitimacy. There was just no middle ground here, at all.
And it all just exploded in early 2015. As Obama is putting the finishing touches on the deal, Netanyahu does something that is just unheard of. He goes around the White House, accepting an invitation from congressional Republicans to address a joint session of Congress where his whole goal was to campaign against the president's policy. To the White House, this was a shocking, unforgivable act of partisan interference.
You have to understand, this had never happened before. A leader of an allied nation had never come to American soil to openly lobby Congress against a sitting U.S. president's signature foreign policy. A fundamental line had been crossed, a big one. For the Obama White House, the relationship wasn't just damaged anymore, it was completely and totally broken. So this brings us to the final act. In the last weeks of his presidency, Obama has one last powerful message to send. A kind of diplomatic parting shot that basically put in writing just how broken their alliance had become.
For decades, the United States had been like Israel's diplomatic bodyguard at the UN, using its veto power to block resolutions that it saw as unfair. But not this time. In December 2016, a resolution condemning Israeli settlements came up, and the U.S. just stood aside. They abstained. They didn't veto it. This historic break from policy allowed the resolution to pass, and Netanyahu's government saw this as the ultimate betrayal.
And that was it. The message behind the abstention was loud and clear, and it was the Obama administration's final word on the subject. After years of frustration and public fights, they were officially done protecting Netanyahu's policies on the world stage.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. Let's answer that central question. Why did the trust just vanish? It turns out the big public fights over settlements in Iran, they were just the symptoms. The real problem, the real disease, was much, much deeper. You know, when you boil it all down, it looks something like this. Obama's camp saw Netanyahu as a political operator, always playing an angle, more focused on his own survival than on genuine peace. And Netanyahu's circle? Well, they saw Obama as dangerously naive about the harsh realities of the Middle East and way too eager to talk to enemies like Iran. When there's no mutual respect, all you're left with is mutual suspicion.
And that is the ultimate takeaway here. You get it? This story isn't just about specific policies they disagreed on. It's a stark, powerful example of what happens when two leaders, bound together by a necessary alliance, just do not trust or respect each other on a personal level.
So it really boils down to three things. One, Netanyahu and his supporters genuinely believed Obama was hostile to Israel's core security needs. Two, Obama's team came to believe that Netanyahu was fundamentally unreliable, that what he said in private meant absolutely nothing in public. And three, the crucial security work between the two countries kept going, but it was in spite of the leaders, not because of them. And that's what made that hot mic moment so powerful. It was the simple truth, finally out in the open.
And this leaves us with a huge question, one that's really critical for diplomacy today. Alliances are supposed to be built on shared national interests, but the story of Obama and Netanyahu shows you just how fragile and personal they can be. So when that trust between leaders completely shatters, what's really left to hold an alliance together?